So good morning, everyone. I'm Xiaowei from University of Minnesota, and I'm working with Professor Vipin Kumar on this project of plantation mapping in Southeast Asia. And also, we have multiple collaborators from environment domain. So we know that the industry of plantation, oil, especially oil palm plantation, is very important and also very popular in Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia and Malaysia. And it greatly impacts the environment and climate because the plantation industry leads to the deforestation and also leads to the emission of carbon into the air. And also, actually, plantation industry is a typical example of the interplay between food, energy, and water, because it produces edible oils and the biofuels and leads to the carbon emissions and also impacts the water quality. So due to these impacts on the environment, many governments and local companies, they are trying to control the growth of plantations. But all this kind of control actually requires high-quality plantation maps over the years. So our objective in this project is to automatically generate yearly plantation maps. And with this, based on these maps, we can actually capture the growth of plantations. To do this, we use MODIS multispectral data, which is globally available, and it has very high temporal frequency. And the picture at the bottom right actually shows our study region, which covers most Kalimantan region of Indonesia. And based on this MODIS multispectral data, we wish to build a predictive model. And we want to do the classification at a yearly scale from 2001 to 2014. So here, I want to first introduce the current state-of-the-art plantation products, which also serve as the source of training data to our framework. So most existing plantation products, they still rely heavily on this manual labor or visual interpretation of satellite images. And the first data set is very popular and it's also available on Global Forest Watch. And this data set, tree plantation data set, is created by manual labor or by visual interpretation of Landsat data on 2014. But the problem is this data set has a very high recall. Basically, it covers all the real plantations, but it makes a lot of mistakes. The second data set, RSPO data set, is available on 3 different time steps, 2000, 2005, and 2009. And also, it labels each location into one of 19 predefined land cover categories as listed on this table on the right side. So the problem about this data set is it's very accurate, but it misses a lot of real plantations. So it has very high precision, but very low recall. So on the in this pie chart on the top right, we can see there is such kind of inconsistency between these 2 data sets. So most of the RSPO is included in TP, but TP actually detects much more plantations than RSPO. So the main challenges of our problem is in 3 aspects. First one is, as we mentioned, we don't have very good ground truth data. So both these 2 existing products have some problems. And also the second thing is there exists such heterogeneity within the data. So first, we need to distinguish plantations from all the other kind of land covers like forests, grassland, urban areas. And also the same land cover type can look different in different places. And they also can look different in different years. And in MODIS data, we are provided with the spectral features from multiple days of a year. And when we combine these multiple days, we have a very high dimensional and very complex feature space that we need to handle. So given MODIS data, we solve our problem in 3 different steps. The first step is how we can collect training data. So basically, according to the 19 land cover types defined by RSPO, we aggregate them into 3 different classes: plantation, forest, and other. So here we separate forest mainly because of 2 reasons. One is forest, they usually look very similar with tree plantations because they all look very green. And also, we wish to understand the conversion process from forest to plantation. And based on these 3 aggregate classes, we take training samples with equal amount of samples from each subclass. So basically, in this way, we wish the training process is not dominated by some very large class like grassland, but ignore some very small classes like urban area. And also, we use the high recall dataset, that is the tree plantation dataset, to filter the selected samples. Because tree plantation has high recall, so any plantation samples that falling outside the tree plantation dataset are highly likely to be false positives. And finally, we collect samples from different years by interpolating the RSPO dataset on 3 different years. So with the collected samples, we use this Ensemble learning framework to generate the classification output. So specifically, we learned 3 different binary classifiers for each pair of these 3 aggregated classes. And then we aggregate the prediction result by majority voting. And for each classifier, we first select k most discriminative images from the 46 images available on each year. And then we combine these k dates, the multispectral data of these k dates, and use a pre-training phase to extract the most representative features. And then finally, we generate the classification outputs. So after the learning process, we want to further improve our performance by doing the post-processing. So here we do the post-processing from 2 aspects. The first is temporal filtering. So basically, because we do the classification at a yearly scale, so there can be some classification errors in some specific years, mainly because of the natural disturbance like clouds and other factors. And here, to fix these classification errors, we use a hidden Markov model. So here we assume each latent state represents a true land cover type, and each observed variable represents a classification output. And in this way, we can fix these errors and discover the true land cover type at each time step. And besides, we do the spatial filtering because most new plantations are cultivated around the existing plantations. So usually the plantation area is formed in connected components. So basically, we find all the connected components and remove the small components under a threshold. So now we come to the validation of our method. So basically, we first measure the precision recall of our generated plantation map. So here we name our method as POM, which is short for plantation analysis by learning from multiple classes. And we measure the precision by TP dataset because TP has high recall, so anything falling outside TP are likely to be false positives. And RSPO is very accurate, so we wish to detect all of them. So after this precision recall measurement, we further investigate our plantation map with these existing products, TP and RSPO. So we draw this Venn diagram here, and for each region in this Venn diagram, we randomly take some samples, and then we manually check whether there are real plantations or not by comparing to the high-resolution image from digital globe. So this percentage number here means basically how much of these samples are real plantations in each region. So we can see that for the region that we detect outside RSPO, but also included in TP, there is 81% are real plantations. And for the region that are inside TP but missed by us, there are only 39% are real plantation. So basically means we can detect much more real plantations than RSPO, but we won't include those false positives in TP. And besides, we show that we can detect some real plantations outside TP, even if this data set has high recall. And also, RSPO can even make some mistakes. So based on these percentage numbers, we re-estimate the precision and recall. And we get the numbers of 85% and 81% at the bottom. So these are some very, it's like a more accurate estimation of precision and recall. And these are some very good numbers according to the domain expert. So now we're going to show our generated annual plantation maps. So according to our annual plantation maps, we have an annual growth rate of around 10%, which is very high. And we can observe from this curve that in recent years, from like 2012 to the 2014, the growth rate started to decrease a little bit. I think this is mainly because the control of the government. And for the animation on the bottom, we can see that this plantation areas keeps growing. And here, the red color dots means the existing palm oil plantation in 2001. And the green dots means the new plantations from 2002 to the current year. So we can see that it's very interesting here. The new green points are not appear like in a randomly fashion, but instead they are coming in a like spatially correlated way, and the new green points usually appear near the existing green points or red points. Yeah. So we can see that the final plantation map in 2014 is almost like an expansion of the previous plantation maps. To summarize, in this work, we propose a fully automatic way to map plantations, and this method can be used to generate yearly plantation maps and also can be applied to large regions. And also, we show that our method can achieve a better balance of precision and recall than the existing products, TP and RSPO. And finally, this proposed method can be applied to other land cover problems in other regions of the world. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?
So we have plenty of time for any questions.
I don't have a methodological question, but I have a policy question.
Okay.
Because this is a very important policy problem.
Yeah.
And so how do you and your team or other people at, that you're working with think about that relative to, something is happening where these palm oil plantations are expanding.
Yeah.
And that has implications for carbon. It has implications, relative to forest cover. It has commodity implications. So, it's a really important problem. And, we as engineers and computer scientists are working on one piece of it, but we need to get it out to where it can actually be incorporated in some meaningful way. And not just this problem, but others as well.
Yeah.
And let me just add to that. This is exactly the set of questions that motivated us to work on this problem. We have an Institute of the Environment at the University of Minnesota who sort of said, well, this is a big question. The rainforest, the tropical forests are so important, and they're being converted rapidly for agriculture and for biofuels. And unless we can do very precise maps of these, you cannot really, unless you have a monitoring, reporting, verification system, you cannot really take the policy decisions to control the development. And it's in that context we try to develop this very first annual map.
That's great. And I think it also, it provides additional provides additional motivation, I think. Students these days, I think, are not just inspired by improving the classification accuracy or getting, prettier pictures. And I think this very thing is what's so important. And you were referring to it as well early this morning. It's all part of the, interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary kind of initiatives that we need to be, attacking.
One more question back here, just a second.